Here's the thing to remember. Even though right now, at this moment, we're both kind of over it and we're ready for this to be done, we had a really nice run. Let's not forget that.
Oh, yeah, man. It was a good time.
Let's not forget that.
We watched a lot of cool movies.
We've watched a lot of movies and some cool movies.
I mean, I like movies, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. We should still meet weekly to watch movies and then talk about them. But no recording.
I have a question for you, Scott.
Why a podcast?
Why
do
not a podcast?
It's just a lot.
And that's our show. No.
I mean, I can't even imagine being you. You do double.
I do double.
You do the editing and the posting and stuff.
You know, it's a labor of love.
Huh.
It's fun.
All right.
We'll probably
look back fondly.
You know, you never know. It's a big internet
Maybe
out
not,
there,
then.
and we might pop up in some shape or form one day. You never know.
Yeah, maybe for something I accidentally racist said.
Yeah, and it'll be recorded by and distributed by me.
Well, someday that Libsyn isn't going to keep getting paid.
I think you can archive it.
Okay.
Where it's maybe stays still available. I don't really know.
Oh.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. That's a future us problem.
Yeah. That's a us by ourselves discussion.
Here comes the theme!
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we started at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and we worked our way up to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott. And today, we've reached the pinnacle, the apex. We're talking the Maltese Falcon, rated 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow.
The very top.
Remember how young we were when we started?
At least 2 years younger. So do.
Yeah.
You didn't have a beard, though. I'll give you that.
Did I not have a beard?
You didn't have a beard.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That makes it feel like longer to
Yeah,
me.
there you go.
Huh.
You didn't have Mickey either.
Oh my God, you're right. I remember
Father, you've grown a beard. You've grown up in front of our whole audience.
the first episode. The first episode we recorded was in my apartment kitchen.
You're a homeowner now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. There's your sign. We got to pay for that, don't we? Jeff Foxworthy used that joke.
I didn't even realize that, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. Well, anyways.
I only know one Jeff Foxworthy joke, and it's really just a format. It is, you might be a redneck if, and then you say something shitty.
Yeah.
And you just do that for 2 hours, I think.
I think Jeff Foxworthy had a here's your sign thing. Like, here's an example of one. It would be like if you and your wife can go to the same family reunion, you might be redneck. Wait, that was yours. Let me. It would be like I can't even think.
I gotta say,
I'm pretty sure it was
a classic Scott example backs up my example. So
I think I'm pretty sure that was Jeff Foxworthy.
You might be a redneck.
Here's your sign.
It might be. I remember one other joke from his that was about a bachelor's first apartment.
Yeah,
and he was talking about the shitty furniture, and then he's just like, he says, your coffee table, it's one of those spools, those giant spools of wire, and then he's the mystery stain on the carpet, and for some reason that stuck with me since like 1994. Just that he talks about a spool and he says the mystery stain on the carpet. The rest of the thing is you might be a redneck.
I think Here's Your Sign was him too.
I don't know, man.
But I legitimately, when I just did that impression, thought I was doing a Here's Your Sign joke, and I ended it.
Yeah, you used the punchline I literally just used before you. So,
man, it should be said, we haven't slept since we started at 0%.
It's true.
It's been a long, if we seem a little loopy.
Time. 2 years.
Yeah. Max has watched this beard grow before his very eyes. Well, anyways, we're here at the Maltese Falcon. Last week, we had our former guests, the honorary podcast boys, on to discuss what they wanted us to watch. It was a nail biter.
It was. Kept people on the edge of their seat. It was a real driveway moment.
It was a real driveway moment. But we got the Maltese Falcon, and then we watched it, and it was good.
We did.
Yeah.
We did watch
classic
it.
from Noir. Do you want to talk about anything you've been watching?
I mean, I've been all over the place watching stuff, man. I will say this.
Yeah.
I've been on one of my YouTube kicks where I watch a bunch of YouTube channels, which is why I couldn't think of anything like to the top of my head what I've been watching. But first off, there's a cool channel that it's just like a guy who usually used to talk about paleontology, but he talks about history in general. Okay. He runs a cool channel called Trey the Explainer.
Trey the Explainer.
And he sources everything. And it's nice to see science on YouTube that's sourced.
Yeah.
Always refreshing. YouTube has a lot of garbo out there, so that's been a fun channel to watch. But beyond that, I actually did dip into some nostalgia, vintage, retro watching, and I checked out the Never-Ending Story, which I hadn't watched in years.
I don't think I've ever seen the Never-Ending Story.
I don't know if it holds up without nostalgia. Fully. But I will say it's well made. I mean, it's child acting in the 80s, but it's still pretty solid beyond that. And it's a cool fantasy film, which is nice. And one of the things that I do like about it is that it does have a kind of double layer appeal to it. So a lot of the kind of emotional content actually resonates more as an adult in some ways.
And is that because of your memory of it, or is it just
it's on a
your
separate
different
level?
perspective?
So there's one sequence of the film where this hero character that the main kid's reading about has to face down like the guardians to the Southern Oracle or something, and it's basically two Sphinx ladies that if you think you're not worthy, they shoot laser bolts out of their eyes at you and kill whoever walks through if they start to doubt themselves. So there's that, and it's like a physical challenge he has to get through. But then the moment after, it's like the hero then has to face an even harder challenge. Yeah. And the kid's like, I don't get it. The kid reading the book, and because it's a story within a story, but
nested story.
And then the kind of, I guess, like the wizard who he had been talking to, or whoever the guy was, is just saying he has to see his true self, and that's the challenge. And it just shows the teenage hero who's walking up, looking into her mirror, and it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're a kid, but as an adult, you're like, oh shit, that does kind of make sense. Because what's scarier than like fully grasping yourself? Yeah. Like that is like a horror film for some people. So.
Yeah, and when you're an adult, you've gone through that to an extent, you know. Yeah. I mean, just like going from childhood to adulthood, whether it's college or just getting right into the working world, like that is facing yourself, facing reality, what you're capable of. There's no more
I mean, it's like
crucible of youth.
Sense, and the whole movie is kind of like makes little commentaries between those two moments. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if it'll hold up without nostalgia, but I thought it was an interesting watch.
Yeah, I don't think I'll actively seek it out, but I'll always be interested.
Everyone who has seen it growing up, there's a tearjerker moment in there that like probably they'll still cry during.
Does the furry dragon die?
No, he's fine, but there is a horse, a named horse who ends up dying.
Is that the scene in the swamp?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was from Neverending Story. Yeah. I've seen that clip before, but
there's a long like urban tale that the horse actually died, which is untrue. They gave it to the actor who played that kid.
Oh, like that the
horse actually died. They went that far. That was always like a thing that was spread when we were kids, and it's not true.
Well, you know what? We'll find out during some of our behind the scenes of the Maltese Falcon that some things in Hollywood back in the day were weird.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah. I was trying to look up while you were telling that story. I've been watching a lot of YouTube as well. There's this one channel I've been watching, and I can't remember the name of it. This is my problem with YouTube creators. It's just my problem.
You should check your history.
I think his name's Mark
Robson.
Robley. I don't know. I'm sorry for failing the shout out, but
Mark Robson Robley.
He does a lot of like science videos where he went viral when he made this like really intricate. I was about to say mail bomb, and that's not the right phrase, but to stop package thieves.
Oh yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
It was like when someone would steal a package from his doorstep, and it had 4 phones in it that would turn on when they lifted the lid, shoot glitter all over their car or wherever, and spray fart gas everywhere.
It's Mark Rober.
Mark Rober. Okay, so I was there.
You were there. You were close. He's an engineer. He used to work on
he worked on
NASA.
Landers.
Yeah.
He worked on NASA.
He worked on all of it. All of NASA.
But he has some other interesting videos. I was going through that video is really well put together, and it's just really cool, and he explains things well. So I was watching some of his other stuff, and a lot of it's aimed at a younger audience because they'll go through like how to build the most optimal soapbox derby car. And I remember as a kid doing the soapbox derby.
We've talked about it before, I think, on the pod.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see like which things you're supposed to do, and then how to build the most optimal egg lander. for like that drop the egg from the top of a building, and they go into why certain things work and why certain things don't, and so it's just really cool. And then some other ones like carnival science scams, like.
So you just made me think. This little aside for you.
Yeah.
One of the previous jobs I had a couple years back. I think when we started the podcast, actually.
Holy moly!
It was a very shitty office I worked at.
There it is.
And, the boss was insane. He basically ran like a shit show of a company, and I think he unfortunately still does. But he would always make these terrible rules. He's like an unfunny Michael Scott.
Yeah, hope you don't need a reference.
No. But he'd make terrible rules, and he would always try to make up for it in his mind by throwing fun party events and require people to go. And if you didn't go, you might get fired. And near my end there, my last couple months, I would say my last half year there, he decided to have a big contest, an engineering contest, to have an egg drop. That's all he said. And so that was the rules where your egg can't break. But then they never established like any guidelines to follow.
It was Wild West style.
So it was a fucking free for all. So we had just been moving, I think.
Yeah.
And me and Jody had tons of packing material, so I just brought shit tons of stuff in, and he disqualified us for having like too good of a system, and it dropped off everything, and nothing broke once. And it was basically like we took the egg, we had made this chamber out of packing material stuff with peanuts and bubble wrap, and then taped that up with like a double layer of tape, and then had like some structure built around it. And
you guys had like a $50 like spare parts.
Well, basically, there wasn't even like a limit on anything at all. So,
but that was too much.
So we didn't even work together. We worked together for 5 minutes before because I brought all these packing things, and we built it literally right there. And he was so angry about it.
So that's why he was mad, because the teamwork failed.
Oh yeah, he put the 4 laziest people that worked at the company together.
Yeah. Well, they won.
Well, we got disqualified for just existing.
Laziness breeds a certain ingenuity.
That's what I said. I said ours was done with the least amount of work, which is actually the best way to engineer something. So,
well, according to Mark Rober, Son's Evil.
Yeah, Rober.
The best way to do it, or what I thought the best one was like you do a bunch of straws taped alongside the egg, and then when they land, as long as none of the straws are pointing towards the egg, none of the like impact will go into the egg. They'll all go around it. So that was what you guys should have done, I guess. Or you could tie it to a drone and then slowly lower the drone.
I mean, the thing is, like, with no rules, we could have just done that.
No
honestly.
rules, just right.
It was the Outback.
Outback style. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. What's the worst like YouTube channel you visit every now and then?
The worst?
Like the dumbest. What's the dumbest YouTube channel you'll go to?
The dumbest YouTube channel I'll go to. I watch a lot of like Survivor clips, so there will be like these are the top 50 voting confessionals of all time, and I'll see one and immediately know everything about it because I've seen it already.
That's funny.
Yeah. What about you?
It's like, why are you watching?
Yeah, because it's like I could just watch Survivor again, but it's nice to get the good moments.
I'm trying to think specifically if I have anything that's extra dumb that I'm very regular with. I'll watch like people playing bad, stupid games, basically, like video games. I like Let's Plays that are like not fun games. It's like how I like bad movies, I guess. I'll like to watch people criticize bad things.
But the people doing the Let's Play are entertaining,
They're usually entertaining people, yeah. I do like commentary YouTube, which is like its own subset. So that's usually people watching other people's videos and then making fun
not really
of them.
React videos, but
it's more long
like
form commentary.
The film essay version of a React video.
But it's to other creators.
Yeah,
which
like
is
Pay Money
funnier.
Wubby is
he's pretty
one
good,
who does
and
a
then
few
Leon
of those.
Lush is pretty funny. There's a couple of them out there that are funny. So those are the dumb, like the low hanging fruit channels.
For me, I'll just rewatch like New Girl or The Office or Parks and Rec or something. That kind of thing that I'm not even watching. I'm just playing a game on my phone.
I get you.
Like I can simultaneously be doing 4 things, but I wouldn't count any of them as doing anything. So I'm doing like a really careful juggling act of nothing.
Brought to you by ADD.
Yeah, I mean, it's both like impressive from just an outsider watching, like how is he playing a phone game, texting someone, watching a show, and do it? yeah, and it's like he's doing all those things, but he's doing nothing.
We're like, wow.
Yeah,
I mentioned 3 scientists watching you,
like the modern man. Like a scientist from the
distraction
from the 1940s would come and be like, look at all the options he has, and he does nothing.
He's doing things, yet there's no results.
Like he walked up to his Blu-ray shelf, shuffled a couple of things, and then took his pants off.
We're not entirely sure his dog is actually a dog.
Yeah. Evolution.
It's a collection of worms in a bag.
Darwin was right.
Yeah, that's I get it. Sometimes
That's life.
Sometimes I sit down to read a book and instead I'm on my phone for 45 minutes.
Yeah, and then you stop, quote unquote, reading, and you go downstairs. You're like, I just read.
Yeah,
I do that too. But you know what else the scientists from the 40s might say?
The Maltese Falcon was a good movie.
Yeah, they'd say, "Hey, Mark, do you remember the Maltese Falcon?" And they'd say, "Luke, I'm glad you brought that up because they just greenlit a sequel."
And then Matthew would say, "I can't wait to see the sequel." And John would be like, "What's going on, guys?"
Yeah, but that's because John knew that the author of the Maltese Falcon, Dashiell Hammett,
old Dashiell,
he had the rights to the character Sam Spade. So when Warner Brothers was trying to make their sequel called Three Strangers, they couldn't do it because he was like, I got the Sam Spade character. They had everybody ready to come back. John Huston wrote the script, and then they didn't. So then they had to make that movie with just other characters, and it's unmemorable.
Is there a sequel to the book or anything? Or
I don't know. I didn't look that far into it, if I'm being real honest.
I get you.
I think not, though.
Which is interesting. And I've never seen this sequel.
Here we go.
I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I thought this movie was good, but it didn't blow me away.
Yeah.
There are some moments that I thought kind of dragged. And for an older movie, the beginning and the end are super smooth and super tight and super awesome. And the center, it just lost me at a couple points where I had to re-engage actively. And when I was paying attention, though, I was very wowed by it.
Yeah.
But I in my head, I compared it to Chinatown.
I thought you were going to say number 23.
No, not at all. I would never say anything that crazy. But although I do think back on number 23 fondly. But Chinatown's a very good movie, very much molded after this format.
Yeah.
And I would say almost that like Chinatown is this format perfected.
Yeah. The Maltese Falcon kind of sets up that formula, and then a bunch of other movies have come and knocked it out of the park. We watched LA Confidential. Same thing.
Yeah. And one thing me and you had talked about, like, if you were going to make one big change to this movie, it would just be some kind of, not even a full-on action piece, but something like thrilling in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get the heart rate up again and get you paying attention.
Yeah.
It gets close to it with just like talking with dialogue, but it's still kind
of... Things build up to a bit of a furor. Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is. Or a fervor might be.
Fervor.
But what I was going to say was Chinatown did get a sequel called The Two Jakes.
Ooh.
And I've never seen it, but I thought it was kind of funny that it was
It's an intriguing title.
It's a numerical title.
And then LA Confidential had a sequel called Four
Brothers. That's a different movie.
Yeah. I didn't know it was in the same universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you know.
On your criticism, though, and I think it's a totally valid criticism because the way the movie works is basically that first act sets up all the pieces, and it has the most quote-unquote action.
Yeah.
There's a shooting. There's a bunch of different sets.
I'm pretty sure second scene is a shooting.
Yeah. So that's exciting. And then you get to that middle, and it's a little dry because all the pieces they've set up are now kind of interweaving into a very complex web. And then the end is exciting, even though it's still mostly dialogue because everything comes to a head. And so that complex web they built is now unraveling. And so that's really exciting to see. But that middle really needed something. And they kind of had a setup for it because there's one scene where Sam Spade's at his office and a guy walks in with a newspaper wrapped package and collapses dead.
Yeah.
And then the package is the Falcon. He takes care of that. He ships it off. They could have done whatever that shooting scene was, which they then later explain what happened. And it was that Mary Astor's character, Bridget O'Shaughnessy, was at the meet to get the Falcon, and Casper Gutman. Well, I was going to say the name was on the nose, and I made it even more on the nose. Casper Fatman. Gutman and his crew were there to intercept this meeting, but the guy got away after taking a couple bullet shots, and you could have shown that scene, and that's your action sequence that you need to kind of like jolt that audience back awake. Not that it's like really sleepy. It's kind of like, have you seen Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?
I have not.
And it's a very good movie, but it has the same problem where there's a really good story in there, and the Maltese Falcon story is very strong. It's its strong point, in my opinion. But it's just very dry, and you have to really pay attention. And at times it feels just exhausting.
Yeah, and we talked about it before. I think actually, and it's a movie I love, and I think you were fine with the movie, but it's probably not something you'd revisit that often, but Conan the Barbarian
that's
very barely had dialogue for about 2/3 of the film.
Yeah.
But if you mute that movie and watch it, you will know every single plot point that happens during those moments because it's a very visceral, very action-oriented movie. Oh, yeah. It's not like a dumb action movie. It's actually pretty heady, but
especially compared to like the modern Fast and Furious type of action movies.
You watch what you say there. But,
all right.
I mean,
Geostorm type of action movies.
But no, so it's interesting to see that this movie, which is so highly rated, which I mean that movie is highly rated for what it is. Like this one, if you muted it, the middle of the movie could almost be cut down to 5 minutes. Yeah, if it was muted,
for sure. But they don't do a lot of the storytelling with the physical space.
Exactly.
Per se.
Yeah. It's but the dialogue is interesting. It's just it takes a lot to engage with it.
And I wonder if you compared it to I'll go back to Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or another movie, or maybe even The Departed to an extent, where it's a movie with a lot of twists and with characters who are projecting one thing but actually meaning another. Yeah. And with the dialogue in place, you can kind of tell that this person isn't all that they say they are. Like Peter Lorre's character, Joel Cairo, he's a very mysterious foreigner. You know, he's got that little pistol. He was a very interesting character, and you never quite know where he falls.
Yeah.
And I feel like without the dialogue, you'd lose all of that kind of nuance, and then things wouldn't make sense there. Whereas Conan didn't have that same, and I don't mean this as an insult because it's probably not the right word to use, but depth of story.
Well, with Conan, I mean, we don't want to get lost in the weeds with that, but basically the story, the dialogue-dependent story comes back when James Earl Jones's character comes in.
Yeah.
Where he's very much a warlord philosopher. He's like a Thanos of that era, basically.
I totally forgot about him.
With his
great.
bangs.
Yeah.
His bangs longer than yours.
Him with hair.
But,
hey, that means, fucking... Dr. Strangelove wasn't our first James Earl Jones.
Yeah, you're right.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's anything else that we forgot about.
Probably. Smoking Aces.
Yeah. But no, he very much has like a philosophical edge to him, so he talks a lot. But without him in the movie, which he's not there till the end.
Yeah, the Conan section.
It is less depth, but
it's not as cerebral, maybe.
But in this, it's like, I mean, by no means should you take out the dialogue.
No,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if it was muted, there's a lot of story you could skip over, where you would just need to see those action pieces that we kind of see the guy falling when you see Cairo show up and kind of the gun back and forth.
They're the more dynamic pieces.
The cop showing up. Those little pieces, they all work really well and they're very exciting.
Yeah.
It's just there is a lot of dialogue to unpack. And apparently since they had attempted this movie before, obviously it never landed until this one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and this was John Huston's director debut.
Really?
And he did a lot of pretty major films. He did like the original Moulin Rouge. One of his last films that he did was in the 80s. It was Annie. Like I'm assuming that was the original adaptation of Annie. I don't actually know that.
Probably
but
not. I would say there's a bunch.
I'm going to live and die on that hill. But he had written before. So
one thing I was reading was that Bogey had to supply his own suit for this.
Yeah, apparently that was pretty common for Warner Brothers at the time.
Yeah, and so then I wonder, like, maybe those scenes just weren't considered for the film, like to show any of those action moments that they just kind of mention because they're saving money.
Yeah, I mean, I think the film was. I think I read that it was filmed for a total of $300,000 or something.
So I could very much see them being like, new director.
Yeah,
Bogart's going to bring who brings people in. You know, some of these other stars will bring people in. Like that's all good. Let's not spend crazy money on it.
Maybe it was
because there's been failures before.
Maybe it was Bogey's stipulation, like we can't have any shootouts in my suits. I'm not going to risk anything.
Yeah, I mean, shit, suits are
he looked good, and he's also one of the strong points in the movie. I mean,
for sure.
It's funny we watch some actors these days, and they're just very charismatic, but he is very charismatic, and his character, Sam Spade, I love the character because he's kind of a jackass the whole time. Yeah. He's womanizing. Like the first few things you see.
Talking. Everything he says is shit talker.
He had one of the first scenes of him is right after his partner dies, and he's like, "Get Archer's name off the windows," and then he's making out with Archer's widow.
Yeah. Also, he was annoyed when he got called about his partner's death.
Yeah, like he's like they were like, "Your partner's dead." He's like, "Where?" That was his first question.
He's like, "Somebody call his wife."
Yeah. He didn't even want to talk to the wife, so he's definitely a scumbag.
Yeah.
And I like that about the character. Like the first time him and Gutman meet, they're like drinking and they're talking about this Falcon. It's honestly the driest scene of the movie because Gutman is basically, it's all exposition. Gutman's explaining why the Falcon's all important and why it's expensive and why he's important, how he's been searching for it for so long. And that scene ends with Sam Spade smashing his glass onto the table and like throwing a bunch of stuff and just storming out. It's awesome.
One thing I really like with the character of Sam Spade is that we do see him be a dirtbag the whole time, because the reveal in the end where he's doing the right thing actually the entire time, because these people broke the law, because they were shitty. Like, it pays off, basically.
Yeah, because like the first ending, quote unquote, where you think it's resolved, their idea to come up with was, your boy Wilmer's the fall guy, and we'll all run off with the money. And then you're like, okay, that like Sam Spade's kind of a scumbag, so that kind of fits. And then there's the turn where he calls the police and he's like, yep, the guys you want are here, here's the Falcon, here. And it's like, oh wait, I guess.
And he turns in the lady too, O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah, she's putting on all the moves. She's doing the makeouts. She's like, "Don't you love me, Sam?" And he's like, "I might love you, my dear, but I just don't know. And with that
like,
face of yours, I could never know."
He's like, you still gotta go to jail.
Yeah.
So
he's like, "And when you get out, maybe I'll love you then."
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's I mean, you're on the money.
It's of the time.
Yeah.
It's satisfying though, because
exactly.
it is a well-written movie.
Yeah, and it's just like you get more of the character in that moment.
Yeah.
Besides him just being an a-hole. So like he spends the entire time being an a-hole, but then you see like it's
a means to an end.
And it's like a face. You know, it's what he puts out there so he could do his job.
Yeah.
And he says something like that at one point. But and he's saying things the whole time like, you think you know me and you don't, and blah blah blah, and it's cool. I like how they did that. I thought it was very well.
They set him up as a character who exists outside the movie, the Maltese Falcon, like that he's been doing this for a while and he'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's why I see why they wanted to do a sequel. Not only because it was successful, but there's a lot more you could do with that character. You could make it kind of like I think it's Inspector Poirot from like Murder on the Orient Express. Mm-hmm. That was an Agatha Christie character that was in like 20 of her novels. And I don't know that they're related. Yeah, but they're all based on the books originally. And I don't know that the books actually have ties to it. It's basically like an anthology series with this inspector at the center of it, or like Sherlock Holmes was that way too. Yeah. And I could see them trying to do that with this Sam Spade character because there's a lot of stories you could tell there.
Yeah. What's also cool, it's interesting actually, because when I think of other films in this genre, it's usually, you still have your femme fatale type of character. You still have your crime getting committed, but usually like after this, the crimes kind of always have a bigger social scale. Yeah. And this one's like based on the small crimes that happened, and getting these people to serve time for their small crimes is what the real ends up being.
That's true. Like look at The Departed, which is about like the mafia in Boston.
And then FBI.
Yeah.
And then when you
there's
think
always
of like
a mole,
LA Confidential, it's virtually the same thing, like a crime syndicate working with the police.
Yep.
And then with Chinatown, I won't say it because I want you to watch it, but there is like a huge social like city, state, country affecting issue in the movie that's going on at the same time. So it's interesting to see that came later. That they set up all the pieces, but it was like, this is really about...
This is a micro crime.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the people it affects are all within the community, but that's all it is. It's crimes. It's petty crimes.
Yep.
So
and like
it's different.
The body count in the movie is what, 2? They say it throughout. They say someone's got to answer. No, it's 3. Archer. I don't remember the name of
the first guy that she talks about. That he
it's
wants
like
it's
Bridget. Yeah, it's Bridget O'Shaughnessy's like partner kind of in crime.
Yeah.
You never actually see him. He dies off screen before he's met, and then the guy who was delivering the Falcon who died there. That's like the whole body count, which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
Especially if you compare to, I mean, The Departed was
there's
insane,
like
and
3 per minute.
And LA Confidential ends with like a 50-person shootout. So and even LA Confidential isn't dense with action. It has its moments, but and even that, like the body count's a lot higher. So it is really interesting to see such a micro level crime. What's kind of interesting is the prop Maltese Falcons that they use. There are still 3 in existence.
Yeah.
And they're worth over $1 million each now.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and if you were to take that back to that time, that would have been $17 million. Like if it was worth $1 million in 1941, it would be worth $17 million today.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that like the deal they shook out at the end was for like $1,000 or something, like $10,000, and I get the Falcon.
One of them is damaged because Bogey dropped it.
And it's in the museum now, or a museum.
Yeah. Just the one.
You know what? I kind of like that.
Yeah.
There should be one museum.
One museum.
That would be interesting. Like, what if President Trump announced that they were going to consolidate all museums to one museum, and Max was the curator?
God, don't make me the curator.
Well, it's too
You're
late.
in my office, look at it. Things are just everywhere.
Yeah, but everything in
It's
here
like
tells
a
a
wizard's
story.
room, you know, like
Yeah,
old
exactly.
fantasy. Now there's like stacks and weird things.
Yeah, like
jars
a crazed
of shit that you
wizard
don't know what
lives
it
here.
is. Yeah.
Like this looks like the Tesseract.
Yeah, it's weird, man.
But it'd be interesting to see what makes the cut. You know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it wouldn't.
Be like, that's the stack of Jugs magazine. We keep that here in the museum.
That's in the front room.
Yeah.
That's a very stupid aside. Man.
No, the movie, like we said, it begins very, very fast paced.
Yeah.
I was super excited about that because sometimes older movies do
they drag
take
a
their
bit.
time. Yeah.
They pace. The pace was it was a different time.
Yeah. But you could see how this impacted things, how probably people are like, oh, I like how that was crazy breakneck speed. Because they are trying to get you to like understand the full story. So you abbreviate where you need to. And there is a lot of intrigue right away. Like you said, his partner's wife shows up and they kind of build a story right there where she's, she's like, did you kill him? Did you? Because the cops think that he killed his partner. Yeah. And which was interesting to me because they called him and he answered. Yeah. Yeah.
But I guess like that body could have been there for a while.
He had like a non-reaction, which probably was really subtle that they did that. But then they're like, tell us what you know.
They're like, what'd he say? And they're like, where? And they're like, he must have done it. I guess evidence was different at the time too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think
I'm surprised they didn't just shoot him.
Yeah. So no, it's cool because they do set out these like little moments of intrigue, and you're kind of wondering where the full plot's going.
The widow plot line didn't really go anywhere.
She showed up later because
she called the cops on them once, but then after that
it was kind of dumb. Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, it didn't really add to the movie. It was just an interesting character moment.
And I did like all the exchanges with the cops. I thought that was kind of fun because it builds up back to that final moment where he seems very anti-cop. And then you find out he's working with them at the end.
It's very much like in the modern BBC Sherlock show. I don't know if you watched it much, but
no.
Sherlock has a very like antagonistic relationship with the police, but at the same time he's bringing them crime, like he's solving crimes for them. So like they're at odds the whole time. They have dialogue together where he's calling them idiots and stuff, which Sam Spade does in this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he turns in the criminal for them.
It made me think very much of The Departed, where Marky Mark's character is a huge a-hole to Leo the whole time, but he's the one person who actually has his back at the very, very end. So it was kind of a cool thing that it was like, like this trope is well done and carries on through good movies.
And it also does a good job of building more of that story, in my opinion, still of Sam Spade, because you know there's been history there. Yeah. It's unsaid, but just with the way they're talking to each other, that's not the way you just talk to a random police officer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it shows he has moxie.
He's not some just random dick.
Yeah, he's a random dick. I like it.
It's slang.
That could be the third movie, Random Dick.
Oh yeah, write it.
Yeah.
The Maltese dick.
God.
The stuff that dreams are made of.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it's a line from the movie. It's one of the most iconic lines from the
Yeah.
movie.
Obviously, I noticed it.
Yeah, when the police come in right at the very end to his apartment, and he's like, "And here's the Falcon." They're like, "What is this?" And Bogey says, "It's the stuff that dreams are made of."
But it was a fake, wasn't it?
Yeah. It did end up being the fake.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's kind of interesting with the movie. Like, the real Falcon's not ever there.
Nah.
They're all talking about this fake one, and
I do like when he realizes it's fake and he just starts like fucking panic scratching.
Well, that wasn't even when he realized it was fake.
Well,
he was like, "Well, let's see if it's real," and he's
Yeah.
just scratching at it with like a penknife. It's like,
damn,
dude, come on, fat man, put on some gloves or something.
That is how you get right to the understanding, you know?
Yeah, it's like this is a super dorky way that I can
let's hear it.
Compare to that. In Magic the Gathering, there's a big problem with counterfeit cards because cards are so expensive now. Some cards are like $200 that people want in their big decks. And so when I was playing like competitive Magic, I had bought these Chinese cards, like 4 Chinese cards that were like $40 cheaper each than the English version. And people always thought they were fake because that's where the counterfeits are made. And so what people would say, and it's like half a joke, but it would prove the authenticity, would say, oh, well, you should do the rip test. If you rip the card in half, you'll see that the inside layer is green paper. And it actually is. And if you tore even a 10-cent card, you'd see that the inside layer is the green paper. But if you ripped this card in half, you couldn't use it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, use the rip test, use the scratch test to see if the Falcon's legit.
Yeah. At least the Falcon would have more. The real one, I guess, would still be there. But the card would be lost, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so.
but the it would be damaged, I would assume, you know. If you then went to auction with your Maltese Falcon, it wouldn't be sold at near mint. It would be slightly used. I mean, there were in the movie there were like 15 or 20 of these. This was how Malta paid their debt to Spain to show that they were still like respecting the crown. It was all in that big speech that he made,
and in the little placard in the beginning of the film.
Yeah. Which there was a crawl at the beginning, and it was fucking swift.
Yeah,
we were reading it, and the moment I finished the last sentence, it was gone.
Yeah, and
so I'm glad I got there. But
that was after we had our Bible study. So
yeah, we did have a brief Bible study. We don't have to talk about that.
No, we don't.
This was nominated for 3 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actor for Sidney Greenstreet, who played
those all
Gutman.
had similar titles to things we're used to. Usually it's like Best Motion Picture Made Afternoon in the Dawn of Summer.
A summer's dawn picture.
Yeah.
The screenplay ones, there was like 5 different types of screenplay. It was like best writing based on something else.
Best screenplay written by woman. Yeah. Best screenplay written by colored person.
Yeah. Best handwritten screenplay. But this was also Sidney Greenstreet, who played Gutman and got the nomination. It was his first film role.
And he had been acting for like 40 years before.
Yeah, he was a theater actor. Yeah, and he's really good in his scenes.
He's cool, yeah.
He has a lot of bravado. His character is a literal like 360-pound Gutman.
Yeah. And they only filmed him in low angles for the first half of his scenes.
Yeah, to make him look even more humongous.
Only call him Gutman.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time.
Yeah, it definitely was a simpler time. But
there was
it's cool that he got the nom though in his first film.
Yeah. My only other complaint I would have with this film is one. What was her name? Mary Astor.
Yeah.
When she first shows up, she speaks in that old mid-Atlantic accent that doesn't really exist anymore, but in movies was like all the rage there. Accent, like the old reporter accent, basically.
The newsy.
I don't know what she's saying for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And it's fast dialogue.
And like Humphrey Bogart, I can understand. And everyone else I didn't have an issue understanding. Like, what was his name? Asher? Was that the... Archer. He was fine. Like... Bogey was fine. Most of them were fine, but when she first showed up, and I guess she's panicking, and they did say they had her run on set a lot to be out of breath constantly. Yeah, and maybe that added to it, but
her character is a bit of a con woman.
Yeah,
and she's flighty. Telling them that, you need to follow this guy. I'm scared for my life. All this. So that's probably part of it too. But I also didn't get the full. I got the gist of what she was saying, but not the full picture.
Usually, you'd get what she would say because other people would repeat or respond.
Yeah.
So like when Archer comes in, he repeated everything she said in one sentence.
Yeah.
And she was there for like 5 minutes.
Archer was amazing. He was in one scene.
Yeah.
And the whole time he like would lounge over Spade's desk and be like, and point at her with like a finger gun and be like, well, take care of your doll face. Dink.
Yeah. And he's like then I'll take care of you. Like, he's total dirtbag.
Yeah. And then she leaves and he takes the 100 and he like rubs it and he's like, what do you think of that? Piece of water or something.
He's like, I
stupid.
Called it.
Yeah. It's like, what a hen.
It's ridiculous.
And then he
does
dies.
Make an impact though. Yeah.
Yeah, his body made an impact on the fence. I mean,
on the fence.
There was a broken fence. It was kind of a plot point.
No.
Also, I don't. It's the Critical Breakdown's policy not to participate in hearsay, but apparently Mary Astor and
I don't think that's our policy.
Director John Huston were embroiled in an affair throughout the production, and apparently Mary Astor was quite the scandalous actress in her day.
One thing I was going to say was that was pretty common, honestly. You could go back in any of those old bio books of old Hollywood.
I mean, where do you think Weinstein got it?
But no, all the way through Star Wars, Carrie Fisher very famously got Harrison Ford in trouble with, I think, one of his past relationships by being like, Yeah, every time we got to set, it was like we knew we were just going to become partners again during filming. And like she was like, we always had something going on behind the scenes. And he's like, damn it. Like you didn't have to tell everyone that. But
could have kept that to yourself.
Yeah, because he's notorious for not sharing his secrets. So
maybe it feels like we don't hear that kind of thing anymore just because media is so much bigger and
there's like
social
a gossip
media
industry now.
Yeah, so people are just more careful.
Almost. Yeah.
Mary Astor could probably show up to set naked if she wanted to, you know. And she would have to show up clothed because she had to bring her own wardrobe probably, but she could probably do whatever she wants and there's no there's no coverage. Another thing that was interesting was apparently Humphrey Bogart was on suspension from Warner Brothers for not appearing in one of their films a year prior, so they had to lift the suspension to have him in this. And it's just it's a totally different landscape.
Yeah.
I think the studios had more power then.
Oh yeah. Like, it was studios game.
Yeah, like the actor would be in their stable, and it didn't matter if you wanted to do this film instead of that. It was kind of whatever.
And I wonder when it kind of switched over to being full-on movie stars.
Yeah.
Because I mean they were, but eventually it became the personalities were bigger than the productions.
Yeah.
At first it was the productions. Because you're right, they had the power. They were able to be like, we're Warner Brothers, we make these movies. We make this, we do that.
And you bring your own damn suit.
And they'll replace you. Yeah. Also, like in a heartbeat. And Hollywood still works like that to a major degree.
Yeah,
but once you have star power, you have star power.
Yeah, I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio's not really doing anything he doesn't really want to do anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, it's like it's not just the actors; it's the creators as well. Like Christopher Nolan's making a movie, nobody knows what it's about, but everyone knows it's gonna be big, and that he's getting big people for it. And I've seen literally 10 news stories about that. We don't know what he's doing, but it's big.
And it's funny because it's also Warner Brothers, but they came out with like a press release. Yeah. They're like, Christopher Nolan's new movie, it's coming out in May of 2021. We don't know what it is, but he's making it, and we're doing it.
Yeah, so it's
and they're right. I mean, it's going to be.
That's the thing. They're not wrong.
And like all the Dune casting we hear, it's just like incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure these actors that are jumping in, like Oscar Isaac, I guess allegedly, I don't know if that's confirmed. Allegedly sounds negative, but
Oscar Isaac allegedly,
like Rebecca Ferguson, Timothée Chalamet.
You gotta watch Jodorowsky's Dune.
I will.
Yeah, I want you to.
Okay.
Especially with all this like hullabaloo going around about the making of Dune.
You know what? Maltese Falcons really put you in a 40s lingo. There's hullabaloo about Archer.
But no. It's funny because if you compare the making of that film to the making of this one, you'll be like, okay, well, this movie seems downright normal.
Yeah,
they have big names in it.
Sense.
But yeah, I think they thought they were literally going to change the fabric of the universe with the Dune that never got made. So,
I mean,
and then when you see the Dune that did get made, it did change me.
Yeah. The Dune that did get made is a very problematic film, but there are all like. It's funny to look back now that we're at 100%. You know, it's funny to look back and think about some of the movies. Like you mentioned Conan, and I totally forgot about James Earl Jones and his weird hair and all that weird stuff that was in that movie, but also like the solid thread. I look back at Dune, and at the time I was like, this is not a good movie. And it's not a good movie.
But there's something likable
There's something likable about it.
I do also remember you like viciously gagging at the bad guy.
It was Sting's dad.
Yeah, it's one of the. It's not Leto. It's because he's Atreides, but
Harkonnen.
It's Harkonnen.
Yeah.
He's floating around.
Yeah, covered in boils and bile.
And
like eating
having
children.
Sting dance in his underwear.
It was real weird.
But I remember you like physically, like you were like kind of on the edge of a good old Scott dry heave.
Yeah. I think the only time, well, at least the first time I dry heaved was The Witch. When the kid passes the whole apple.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Once again, that's only beaten on record by your joke that ended poorly in The Babadook. So, still the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I mean, at the moment when the kid passed the apple of The Witch, I also passed an apple. It felt like I was lifted from my chair.
Yeah, you were shaking, I'm pretty sure. So.
But like a movie like Mac and Me, which is very bad, I look back on very fondly.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of telling, you know, critic reviews are one thing, you know, the Rotten Tomatoes score. We've spent more of the episode talking about the negatives of this movie than the positives. It is still a good movie. Yeah. We both ended up positive on it, but it's our 100% movie. And I don't know, in this day and age, especially when all anyone cares about is that number, I think it's important to not rule any movie out because it's got a bad Rotten Tomatoes score. I saw Glass. Over the past couple weeks.
Did you like it?
I loved it. It was great.
I need to see it. I want to see it.
There's one
still.
thing I didn't like about it in the ending, and I won't say anything more, but of the things that come to light. Yeah, he was plastic the whole time. I was like, it's glass. But other than that, it's just another great M. Night Shyamalan movie. But it's 38%, and I'm just as guilty of it, even though I pay attention to all this, and I'm very in the weeds. The thing is,
and we've said it so many times, you can't let it demotivate you.
Yeah.
If you think that you might get something out of the film, like I'm actually kind of wanting to see it. I don't think it necessarily looks good, but I did read the manga of Alita Battle Angel back in the day, so I'm like, I kind of do want to see that now. And it's last I checked, it was like 49 or 50.
Yeah. When I saw it was like 33, and my immediate thought was just like, oh, another failure.
Yeah. But then it's like, well, that just means, that could still be the most successful live-action anime adaptation to date and be between 40 and 38. Like,
what about the Death Note movie on Netflix?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's hitting a low bar, so even if it's mildly successful,
it might deliver something you're looking for.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, I might check it out. I have a list of things I need to get caught up on, so that's on the list. I still haven't seen Aquaman.
I don't think Alita Battle Angel's even come out yet.
I think it came out either last weekend or it comes out this weekend.
It didn't come out last weekend. Last weekend was like the worst weekend in theater history of the past
they had the
18 years.
I know they had the premiere, like the red carpet premiere.
Yeah, maybe an
weekend.
international premiere too.
I think it's coming up. Yeah. But no, I mean I'm like, I still kind of want to see that. And there's plenty of things that I see where I'm like I saw the the Pacific Rim sequel was on HBO, or it's on HBO, and I was like, maybe I'll actually watch that now.
Maybe.
I don't think it looks good.
The fights were
all,
good,
but I'm like, well, maybe I'll watch it. But I did watch some clips on YouTube, and it looks terrible. But that's the thing.
And they were right. Don't watch it.
I shouldn't base it off of the score.
Yeah.
And I tend to not now. I'm actually glad about this podcast that it's made me think more about stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And like Charlie St. Cloud is a movie that I legitimately think is great.
Yeah, I'll watch that any day.
And that's like a 8% or something. Yeah. So
it's just a fun watch. Oh, God, so that's the thing. It's like sometimes I used to get annoyed when people are like, I just like the movie because it's fun.
Getaway.
Because I want to hear explanations of why it's fun. That's all I say now.
And there's just something to be had.
And so like movies can totally be fun. Yeah. The one exception to the rule is Master of Disguise.
God.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though? I listen to Conan O'Brien has a podcast now called Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. It's a very good podcast. I've always liked Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, I'm a Conan fan.
And not the most recent episode that came out as of recording, but the prior one was him with Dana Carvey.
Oh yeah.
And it came up on my podcast feed. I was like, no way. And then I listened to it, and it was really interesting. And like Dana Carvey, a esteemed comedian, Master of Disguise had such an impact on me that when I see his name, I was literally filled with a hot rage,
visceral anger.
Yeah. But I listened to it, and he's a funny guy, and him and Conan have a lot of good chemistry. Yeah. So, like,
I get where his heart was when he tried to make that movie.
Yeah.
He saw his peers making gross-out comedies, and he wants to make a film his kids would love. But he made an abortion of cinema that should be destroyed and wiped from the records.
He made a movie that only Prairie Miller loves.
Yeah.
She did not want to join us for 100%, by the way. She probably didn't like Maltese Falcon.
Well, also, we might have gone too far threatening to send her to the sun.
Yeah. We might have.
We.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to talk about the good things in a movie that's relatively seen as good by everybody.
It's hard to add anything to the discussion.
So then you look at it and you compare it to what you know.
Yeah.
What you prefer, and also what you think movies have learned from them.
Yeah.
Because I think the lens is important too. You're always looking through a specific lens.
Yeah, like people watching the Maltese Falcon when it came out, I mean, it's revolutionary.
Yeah, I mean,
like when there was one point where I think we paused it because you got up to get water, and we were 38 minutes in, and it was like, holy shit, this movie's flying by.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can just imagine in 1941 having that experience, and even the drawn out middle is probably still flying by. And there's other things, like the camera work felt very modern.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was dolly zooms.
Well, and we talked about the one take thing.
Yeah. Well, we didn't talk about it on the pod.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, there's a section that's a quote unquote one take shot. Well, not shot, but one take scene where they practice for 2 days. It's a continuously shot, but not singularly shot.
Multiple cameras shooting one take of a scene.
It's a take of a scene exactly shot by different angles, cameras cut together still, but it's 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it is in the portion of it that is too dialogue heavy for my taste. Sure. But it's cool knowing that. And I actually wish I knew that beforehand because I would have paid attention a little bit more to
Yeah.
that. But it's really cool that they did that all the way back then.
Yeah.
And when I think of like the first time I caught that was happening in a movie myself in the theaters, I was on the edge of my seat. That was Children of Men. And I just remember being like blown away that like in the middle of the scene I realized this shit's been going. Like this is crazy.
For sure.
And I can imagine somebody, you know, when this movie came out kind of having similar feelings like this is insane. I haven't seen anything like this.
Well, and then some of the camera work that we might find even to an extent ho-hum normal for a movie from 1941, it's revolutionary.
Yeah.
And so lens is important because when you have that kind of context, you can still appreciate that. Whereas if you were just like, oh, let's throw on the Maltese Falcon, you don't know anything about it. It's like, oh, this is boring. What's so special about this movie? But I think context is very important.
For sure, because I mean, it is important, but it's never an excuse for things that have, you know, changed necessarily, but it does give
Certainly
you understanding.
Not.
So
but
it's like
it can help with appreciation
at,
and understanding,
when we look back at like Young Frankenstein, like there's jokes in there that did not work, that were outdated, that weren't funny, and there was jokes that did not work because they just didn't work, and there were good jokes too.
Yeah.
It's all three. And so when you look back at it, you're like, okay, those jokes that don't work because they're just fucking bad and they're offensive.
Tasteless.
Like, you don't have to excuse it, but you can understand that it was made at a time when that was how every joke was made. That was comedy for the time.
Or
now, not every comedian
acceptable.
was doing it,
but
that's what the field had.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to like the mid to late 90s, you get a lot more of almost that same type of humor. It's more misogynistic. There's more, you know, homophobia built in.
A lot of stereotype.
Good Luck Chuck was honestly on the same level as Young Frankenstein in that tone.
Yeah, except Good Luck Chuck is only 11 years old.
No, I mean, and that's an insult to Young Frankenstein still.
Yeah, to use them in the same sense.
But it's just like, you could see where that was considered completely acceptable to someone even then, but Good Luck Chuck is way late in the game.
Yeah.
And then when you compare it to something like 40-Year-Old Virgin, they had a couple jokes that were on the edge of like gay jokes, but they weren't really... They weren't positioned in a malicious way like they were before.
Yeah.
They were just kind of observational. And from, you know, moving out from that, comedy's changing even now still.
Yeah, comedy is a tough thing to age.
Yeah.
You know, just because comedy is so much about the time and taste and, I mean,
and there's jokes that don't work.
Yeah,
too.
like a comedy we watch today and hold in high regard. In 50 years, who knows how people will think about it. Just because language changes over time and...
Like Superbad doesn't hold up as much for me anymore.
No, I watched
don't think
Superbad
it's as
not
funny
that
as it
long
was
ago.
at all.
And, like Forgetting Sarah Marshall was another one I watched not that long ago. And there's moments I really like, but on the whole,
and
it didn't land for me.
Anchorman. I also think that one doesn't really hold up either.
A lot of those
surprisingly, I thought Dodgeball held up well the last time I revisited it, but it's been years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I was like, I don't know why that one worked for me.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
Like I watched I'd never seen Wedding Crashers. I watched it I don't know, a few months ago now, but I was just like, why do people like this movie?
Yeah. I think a lot of comedies you just keep in a good spot.
The context is
which did make me happy with 40-Year-Old Virgin that I still liked it when we watched it. Because that one I very much like hooked a ship onto back in the day. So
are there any movies out of this podcasting process that you've grown a real genuine fondness and have already returned to, or just like have a very, very special place to you now?
There's a cheating answer.
What's that?
And it's the easy answer. It's the simple answer, but it's still the right answer.
Yeah.
That is both Bahubali the beginning and Bahubali the conclusion.
Yeah, it's cheating because they weren't countdown movies, but holy moly, they're good.
Yeah, I literally thought about rewatching them this week. So
fuck yeah, dude, let's do it.
They're that good.
God, they gotta get a Bahubali 3 going. I pay attention to Bollywood now because I want
you do
to
text me about once a month.
I want to see an announcement of Bahubali 3.
I want to see Prabhas. I want to see Prabhas coming back.
Yeah. I mean, there was just another big, I think the biggest budget Bollywood movie ever or something, or maybe like biggest budget Tamil movie, or it was called 2.0, and I know it came out to some theaters here. It looked insane, but I didn't bite the bullet and see it.
From Countdown Films, I liked Batman, 1989 Batman a lot more when we watched it.
Yeah, I liked
than when I watched it. Okay, I loved it as a kid. And then when I got older and when I read more comics and when I got into like, you know, just more modern takes of Batman, I thought that movie was goofy. And then I actually started kind of liking the idea of it more because I really got into Prince also. And so I was like, Prince soundtrack, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But then watching it this time, I was like, there's a lot of amazing stuff in this film that's really like, shouldn't it's one of those things. It shouldn't still work, but it still worked to this
like
day and age.
dorky Michael Keaton and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it had a lot of heart and charm, and I think that really worked. I'm trying to think what else really stuck out to me. I had never seen The Departed, but I love it now.
Yeah, it's great.
And it was because it was spoiled for me. I said it before in that episode. But I'm glad I waited to watch it because it felt like good, and it felt awesome when I watched it.
Those readings of the Bible did really get to you.
Yeah. No, the
Signs was a big one for me.
Pretty much any Mark Wahlberg movie you made me watch, I very much enjoyed.
Yeah, The Fighter was really good. It's
I was
funny
impressed
because
with his resume.
Wahlberg has a reputation, and it might be part from his personal,
He's made
his
some mistakes in his life.
doings, but I can't remember if we watched one of his early in the countdown.
We watched Boogie Nights. But he's only had really good movies until
Boogie Nights, The Departed, The Fighter.
I think if you take Transformers out and some of his early work out, he's literally had really good movies.
Well, The Happening.
Yeah, I mean, but that's more recent still, comparatively.
It's like 2000.
That's like the beginning of his kind of shitty period, I guess. But I can't really call for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, he's had more good than bad.
I mean, he's to me in those three movies, he's one of, if not the highlight. So,
yeah.
For as much of a meathead as he kind of comes across as other times, like I got a lot of respect for him as an actor.
I mean, he's a great actor. He was
really good in Deepwater Horizon.
Have you read his like daily routine?
No.
He like
will it make me feel bad about my daily routine?
Yes and no. It'll exhaust you. by I would say by 6 a.m. he's done more than I've done in a week. Every day. Like he wakes up at like 3 in the morning after going to bed at like 10 p.m. and works out for like 2 hours before he even says hello to his family. He's on a different level, and he goes to bed. I think he actually goes to bed at like 7 p.m. But no, he's like a fucking monk, dude. He sticks to a routine. But I mean, hey, it pays off for him. He's doing well with his life, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he's not doing too bad. Apparently, that Instant Family. Did you see the trailer for that one?
No.
It got great reviews, and I think did really well at the box office.
I was interested because I think Tom Segura's in it, and so I want to see what he does with his movie career.
But it seemed like a throwaway Mark Wahlberg movie, but it got good reviews. So yeah, Signs for me is one that I think I've watched it 3 times since we talked about it, which wasn't even that long ago. Actually, it was maybe like a year ago now, but I don't know. It's just such an interesting movie to me, and with M. Night Shyamalan kind of coming back and Mel Gibson, I guess even more kind of coming back. It's such a good movie, especially in a day and age when we see stuff like God's Not Dead and The Shack and very on the nose message driven movies. And that's a movie about faith that actually creates a really interesting discussion, and it's just a really good movie. And I love that movie. Yeah.
No, I feel you on that. And Shyamalan's interesting because I find like the fans I know of his, I consider myself a fan as well. But,
but like I'm more of a fan.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people who are more like religious fans. Like I like The Office, you love The Office. It's like that almost, where like I like Shyamalan. You're not the only one. I know easily like 10 people who are like, if you say another bad thing about Shyamalan, I'll stab you.
There's like a borderline cult of Shyamalan where it's just like, I have such an appreciation for his eye and his unfaltering nature in making movies. Like The Last Airbender, we watched The Last Airbender, and it's a turd. But I can see the M. Night Shyamalan in it. You could show a scene of that movie, and it's still got his fingerprints. And in his good movies, it's
those circle
awesome.
face shots where it's framed up on the face.
Yeah, like he does. That's specific to The Last Airbender, but
he kind of does the face shots.
Yeah, he does. But like
he was like overdoing it in that one though, for sure. Yeah,
and especially when that face was so weird. But
the round part.
Like in Unbreakable, the opening scene on the train, it would be easy to film that as a standard shot reverse shot, or to film it from an above angle so you can see both Bruce Willis's character and the woman he's talking to. But they film it from between the seats betwixt the seats in front of them, and so it creates this really interesting movement of the camera, movement of the characters within it, because that's when Bruce Willis takes off his wedding ring in that scene and stuff. It's just so interesting. I just love his vision, and so that just kind of supports your. Because I love The Village too, and The Village is more problematic than Signs, but it's got a lot of pluses.
Appreciate The Village more. Which I had never fully seen it, but I knew what it was before I ever saw it. It's almost the reverse of The Departed. But, I think for me the best thing is. It was fun to get you to sit down and watch some very Max style of movies, and to have you afterwards just be like, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Ranging from something like Snowpiercer, which we were like,
Snowpiercer was awesome.
It's just an awesome film. to finally getting to watch Jurassic Park fully.
Yeah,
and
I'm
you
glad
being
I
like,
did.
You know what? I hate how much I love that.
Yeah.
And then even something like Face Off, where it's like, this shouldn't be this high, but I
fucking
get why
good.
it is, and it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, towards the end of our list, it felt a lot of the time like you and I were doing a lot of. I'm picking the Spectacular now because Max has to watch it.
Yeah.
Like I want him to watch it, and vice versa.
I will say one thing, which we didn't do. We ended up changing our 100% routine, but I thought it was very funny that we almost switched routines towards the end. Because your 100% pick was Terminator, which is very much an action film.
Yeah.
It's like a thriller, but it's an action film.
Yeah.
And it's a popcorn movie in that sense. And then I was like, let's watch Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Nosebleed. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Nuts. I don't want it to end. Oh, boy.
So, guys, we just had a little medical emergency live in this episode. Your boy Scoot's got a bloody nose, but he's powering through. We're gonna
punch me in the fucking face.
Yeah. He said that he's glad he didn't see Seven Samurai, and I decked him.
Oh, damn.
No, but guys, it's been a real fun ride.
Yeah. So this is 100, and it's the peak. There's not a climb back down the mountain. This is gonna be the end of season 1 of the Critical Breakdown, and we're gonna take a little hiatus. Length to be determined, but we've been at this for approaching 3 years, just about every week up until the end here where we missed a couple, but life gets in the way. Life keeps going on, so we're going to see what adult life without a podcast is like for a little while, and then see about coming back. So just keep your eyes and ears peeled, folks.
Yeah, and what's good is now's the time to just go back and listen to the hits, find your favorite episode, see if there's one you missed. Start at 0. I might.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah. Let's get Scott out of here. You can always find us on our website, thecriticalbreakdown.com.
Yeah, any updates would be there.
Yeah. Check us out on social. Check us out on Instagram. I'll link all that in the whatchamacallit. Show notes. Yeah, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Just listen to the show. It's fun. There's a couple other good podcasts out there that cover similar topics, but this got the podcast boys and the podcast dog Walter.
Yeah, we're out.
We're out. You guys have a good time. It's been a blast. And
yeah, it has been fun. I'm in a weird spot right now, emotionally and physically.
We love you guys. I'm going to take Scott to the ER real quick.
My nose is a faucet.
Have a good night.